Ravens Rundown coming up in just a few moments here on the channel. But before we do, Tyler Jones here. I am your new fearless leader here on the channel and be guiding you throughout this journey that we're on together. And I want to make sure that you're following me on the old Twitter as I'll be giving updates on what's going on with this Ravens team. And you can do so by finding me at Tyler Jones Live. Look for that blue verified check mark. And I got a gift out there for my new followers. The first 10 Ravens followers, I will follow back. I am just that type of guy. I will be willing to do that. So the first 10, whoever you are out there, give me a follow, and I'll get you a follow back. And let's get going with today's show. Lots to talk about on today's show, and what we're going to look at first is with Tyson Williams, as the Ravens withdrew their tender on Williams. And if you recall, Williams this past season was expected to take on a bigger role, but it didn't really quite work. Remember that his presence with this Ravens team was expected to increase with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards going down, but it wasn't really anything impressive from what we saw from Tyson Williams with the Ravens this past season. Just one touchdown, 27 carries, and 164 yards. And when you look at this Ravens running back core, I'm not really surprised at all by this move of them doing what they did to move on from Tyson Williams. Yes, the Ravens needed some help at the running back position this offseason with everything that went down, losing running backs, it felt like week after week. But you bring in Mike Davis, the former Atlanta Falcon. He's going to be a part of that rotation of backs to go along the fold. Not a bad year there in Atlanta with 138 carries, 500 yards, and 3 touchdowns there. But when you look at this group with J.K. and Gus and the depth chart there with this Ravens backfield, Justice Hill, I think, is still a pretty decent back as well, the former Oklahoma State Cowboy there. So, nonetheless, there just wasn't room for Tyson Williams at this point. And with the draft pick that they made of Beatty from Missouri in the 6th round as well, the Ravens, you look at last year of where they were at, with all those injuries there, they have fixed this. They have that running back depth now. It was a nightmare scenario what the Ravens went through at that running back position with all the guys that went down last year. But now this team is in position where, if they happen to get that type of bad luck again, which seems highly unlikely, they would be okay. They have those rotational backs to be able to make this work and go through if that type of nightmare scenario were to happen again. Now, Lamar Jackson, of course, expected to still rush the ball a whole lot himself besides just these running backs. Which of these Ravens running backs is going to have a big year? I'm very curious. I would lean towards of this group that J.K. Dobbins is going to be that guy. But when you look at this group of running backs, who is going to rush for more yards? Is it the Ravens running backs or is it Lamar Jackson this season? Here's your chance to chime in the comment section. Type Y for yes, type in for no, if the Ravens running backs will rush for more yards than Lamar this season. Personally, I hope it's the Ravens running backs that rush for more than Lamar Jackson. As Lamar gets older, you don't want to see him rush as more than what he has been throughout his career. This is our pin comment. I want to hear from you guys what you think if Lamar Jackson will outrush the Ravens running backs. Type Y for yes, type in for no. Now, another possibility for the Ravens, as the folks at Bleacher Report have mentioned in their way too early trade deadline targets, is the Ravens possibly bringing in Tyler Lockett, the wide receiver from the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Lockett is currently on a 4-year, a nice $69 million contract, and, of course, he was a former All-Pro player back in 2015. Lockett, a terrific receiver at just 29 years of age. But when you look at this situation, I think that you see this Ravens team. Yes, there is a need at the wide receiver position. But even with all this being said, I don't think that the money necessarily works here when it comes to a Tyler Lockett deal being done. Now, if you are looking at 2023, the Seahawks would owe Lockett in dead money, even if he puts on a Baltimore Ravens uniform, $11.4 million in dead money. It would be great for the Ravens to see him take the Seahawks take on that dead money, but I just don't see a scenario where the Ravens would benefit from trading for Tyler Lockett without the cost being too high. I think because of how much it would cost Seattle of that $11.5 million, the asking price is not going to be cheap for Tyler Lockett there. So I like Tyler Lockett. The Ravens need receiver help. We'll go over that depth chart in just a second, but I just don't see that trade happening for Tyler Lockett, even at the trade deadline when that cap would be reduced on that front. What do you guys think? Should the Ravens trade for Seahawks wide receiver Tyler Lockett? Type T for trade, type P for pass if you think the Ravens should make that move. Let us know in the comment section. T for trade, P for pass. So here is a look at the Ravens wide receiver depth chart right now. And as you can see, after the Marquise Brown move, there is some holes among this depth chart when it comes to wide receivers, as they got to find somebody. Now, Rashad Bateman is your leading receiver, but one guy that I expect to have a breakout year is Tylan Wallace, the wide receiver from Oklahoma State. He was a former Biletnikoff Award winner, and he was a guy that was coming off an ACL injury. They were able to pick him up in one of the later rounds when they drafted him a couple years ago. Wallace, I think, will elevate himself and be the number 2 receiver when it's all said and done. But now I think you still need to bring in one more free agent receiver. I have a list here of some free agent receiver options for the Baltimore Ravens at this point. Here's some 5 names to keep tabs on. Now, they're all a bit older. You're not going to find your generational franchise receiver in free agency this late in the ball game here. You're looking for Band-Aids right now. And Jarvis Landry is the top wide receiver I like of available free agents at this point in time. Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., Will Fuller, T.Y. Hilton, all options as well. Something to keep in mind, all 5 of these guys have had recent injury issues of some sorts that they've dealt with. They're not spring chickens by any means. Now, you look at Jarvis Landry. Last year in 2021, 52 catches, 570 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think he still has the most good football left in him of those 5 receivers. He won't be cheap necessarily, but of that 5, I would give the edge to him as far as the guy that I would pick if you made me choose between those 5 that are available there. With OBJ, for example, with him suffering that injury in the Super Bowl, the likelihood that he plays week 1 is not there. It's not likely that you see him there. And Julio Jones, coming off the worst season of his entire career, what does he have left in the tank at this point? That remains to be seen. So Landry, I think, is your safest bet of those that were on that list. I like the idea of signing Jarvis Landry and bringing him in to be one of your starting receivers there in Baltimore. Now, Ravens Rundown. We're going to be with you each and every day on this channel, bringing you daily Ravens content. And the way that you can be a part of what we're doing here is by subscribing to the channel. And we'll do our best to bring you all the Ravens coverage that no one else is talking about. We have the news, we have the rumors, everything in between. YouTube.com/RavensTV, so you can stay up to date with the latest Ravens news and rumors from right here on Chat Sports. That's YouTube.com/RavensTV. All right, one more note before we wrap up today's show. I want to look at Makai Polk. Polk, a wide receiver out of Mississippi State, was a undrafted free agent signing from Mississippi State that the Ravens picked up. And the folks out at Bleacher Report put a list together of the most likely undrafted free agents to make rosters across the NFL. And for the Ravens, it was Polk. Now, Polk, he was second in all of college football last year in catches, 105 in total. NFL.com's Greg Zuerlein says he has a high football IQ and impressive ball skills. Now, the thing that stands out to me, too, when I look at Polk is the size. 6'3", 200 pounds, all those catches and 9 touchdowns and 1,000 receiving yards. How on earth did this guy go undrafted? It makes no sense to me. He was projected going into the draft to be about a 5th or 6th round guy, but finds himself on the outside looking in and ends up there in Baltimore. And when you see where the Ravens' depth chart was at receivers, we showed you that earlier, I would tell you that Polk has a good chance to make the roster. I like the potential of Polk to see action maybe as early as week 1 when it comes to this 53-man roster. I think those top 4, I don't see him beating out, but I could see him getting that 5th spot if they don't bring in another wide receiver as well from that list of free agents we talked about. But nonetheless, I like Polk. Will be interesting to see what he does with a training camp just around the corner. Now, one thing I want to ask you, too. When you look back at this draft, everybody around the National Football League is saying the Ravens knocked it out of the park, that the Ravens scouting staff is arguably the best in the National Football League. How do you think they did individually? Who was your favorite Ravens draft pick? Let me know in the comments section who your favorite is of this group of who the Ravens selected in the 2022 NFL Draft.